Picture this. Your hand is on the doorknob. It's your door, your life, your opportunity. The key is already in your pocket. You can feel it. You can almost hear the click that would change everything. And then you don't turn it. Not because you don't know how, not because you're confused, but because something inside you tightens in a split second that turns into minutes. Your chest gets smaller. Your throat goes a little dry. Your mind starts talking fast, like it's trying to keep you busy enough to forget what you were about to do. From the outside, you look calm, maybe even productive. You're thinking, you're planning, you're organizing, you're researching one more thing. But inside, you're frozen. And that's the part that messes with you, isn't it? Because you know exactly what to do. You've read the books, you've watched the videos, you've made the notes, you've given other people brilliant advice. You can see the steps. You can practically see the outcome. So why do you keep freezing? There's a line from Marcus Aurelius that lands like a quiet thunderclap when you're in this pattern. Hear it slowly, in English, exactly as it is, and let it touch the place that keeps stopping you. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. What stands in the way becomes the way. Because what's blocking you is not random. It's not a character flaw. It's not proof that you're lazy, broken, or doomed. Most of the time, freezing is not weakness. It's protection. It's an old protective intelligence inside you, pulling the emergency brake right when your life is about to move forward. And if that's you, if you've been living in that strange space where you know what to do, but you don't do it, I want you to feel something right now. Not pressure, not shame, not a lecture. Relief. Because today, you're going to see what's actually happening under the surface. You're going to understand the hidden mechanics of self-sabotage in a way that doesn't blame you and doesn't excuse you either. It just gives you the truth. Clear, clean, usable. And then we're going to do something even more important. We're going to use your future self like a bridge, not as a motivational fantasy, as a real inner technology, a way to shift your state, shift your identity, and finally move without violence inside your own mind. By the end, I'm going to guide you through a simple practice you can do in minutes, and it changes the way your nervous system relates to action. It changes the way you relate to yourself. You'll feel clarity, you'll feel momentum, you'll feel that quiet internal click of, I'm back. Now, before we go deep, let's make this a co-creation. If this theme hits you, if you've lived the I know, but I freeze, subscribe to the channel. Leave a like, because it helps this message reach the exact people who need it at the exact time. And in the comments, write one word as an intention, like a signature you're placing on your own timeline. Write coherence. Just that, coherence. Because when you write it, you're not just commenting. You're choosing a frequency. You're telling your inner world, I'm done splitting myself into a thinker and a doer. I'm here to align. All right, come with me. Let's start with the truth most people miss. Freezing is not doing nothing. Freezing is a state. It's suspension. It's a kind of internal pause where your intention is leaning forward, but your body is pulling back. Like one part of you is reaching for expansion, and another part is whispering danger. And here's the key. You don't freeze in front of what you don't know. You freeze in front of what you know. And what would change you? You don't freeze because the task is impossible. Sometimes you freeze because it's simple. And if it's simple, there's nowhere to hide. If it's simple, then if you don't do it, it becomes personal. It becomes identity. It becomes, what's wrong with me? So your system does something very human. It tries to keep you safe from the feeling you think will come if you step through. Because action isn't just action. Action is a doorway. And doorways change who you are. And change, to an old part of your brain, can feel like loss. Loss of control. Loss of belonging. Loss of love. Loss of the old story you've learned how to survive in. That's why you can be so intelligent and still stuck. That's why you can be so spiritually aware and still self-sabotage. Awareness alone doesn't override old protection. Protection lives in the body. Protection lives in the nervous system. Protection lives in the part of you that learned, at some point, that being seen wasn't safe, that trying and failing was humiliating, that succeeding might make people leave, that speaking up might cost you affection, that shining might trigger criticism, that finishing might create expectations you don't feel ready to carry. So the system chooses what it thinks is the safest move. It chooses the familiar, even when the familiar hurts, because the familiar is predictable. And predictable, to the survival mind, feels like safety. This is why you can stay in a job you hate. This is why you can stay in a relationship that shrinks you. This is why you can keep postponing the thing that would finally set you free. Not because you love suffering, because your system learned how to survive there. And the unknown requires rebirth. Rebirth is beautiful. But rebirth is also terrifying to any part of you that still believes change equals danger. So let's talk about self-sabotage with honesty. Self-sabotage is rarely, I want to ruin my life. Self-sabotage is almost always, I want to avoid a feeling. You're not avoiding the task. You're avoiding what you think the task will make you feel. The discomfort of being a beginner. The vulnerability of being judged. The fear of not being good. Or, and this one is surprisingly common, the fear of being good and having to sustain it. Because if you finally do it, you can't pretend you don't want it anymore. If you finally step up, you can't hide behind one day. If you finally create momentum, you have to become someone who holds momentum. And that identity shift is exactly where freezing happens. Because your body will obey identity more than it obeys plans. Read that again in your mind. Your body will obey identity more than it obeys plans. If deep inside you still carry an identity like, I'm the one who starts and stops, or I'm not consistent, or I always mess it up, then your mind will find 1,000 clever reasons to protect that identity, even as it frustrates you. Because the ego doesn't care if you're happy. The ego cares if you're familiar. Familiar is safe. So the mind becomes a lawyer. It builds a case for delay. It's not the right time. I need one more piece of information. I'm not ready yet. I'll start on Monday. Let me fix a few things first. I'm too tired today. Now is not ideal. And it all sounds so reasonable, so mature, so responsible. But underneath, it's the same old fear in a new suit. Fear of crossing a line. Because crossing a line means leaving an old version of you behind. And that's where your future self comes in. Not as an inspirational poster, as a living compass inside you. Your future self is not a stranger. Your future self is you, with coherence. You, after you stop negotiating with fear. You, after you stop abandoning your word. You, after you learn how to be loyal to your own growth without being violent to your nervous system. And the moment you connect to that version, your questions change. Instead of, what's wrong with me? You ask, what in me is trying to protect me? And from what exactly? And when you ask that, something softens. Because now, you're not at war with yourself. Now you're listening. And listening is power. There's a principle here that's subtle. But once you see it, you can't unsee it. Most people think motivation creates action. But often action creates motivation. And even deeper than that, evidence creates identity. Identity creates behavior. Behavior creates destiny. Freezing happens when you have a desire, but no evidence that you can trust yourself with it. Maybe you've broken promises to yourself before. Maybe you've started and stopped. Maybe you've tried and it hurt. Maybe you were shamed for wanting more. Maybe you learned to shrink to keep peace. So now every time you approach something meaningful, your system goes, wait, last time we tried this, we got hurt. And it slams the brakes. So you don't need more willpower. You need new evidence. Small, real, clean evidence that tells your system we're safe now and we move now. That's why tiny actions matter more than big speeches to yourself. A tiny action is a vote. A tiny action is a signal. A tiny action collapses possibility into reality. Because here's another truth. As long as you don't act, you can live in potential. Potential feels amazing. Potential is clean. Potential is romantic. In potential, you're still the person who could. You could write the book. You could start the business. You could get in shape. You could heal your relationship. You could finally create content. You could apply for the role. You could change everything. And as long as it stays potential, you never have to risk being imperfect. You never have to be seen trying. So the mind loves the hallway of potential. But the hallway is not a home. It's cold there. Nothing grows there. Your future self doesn't live in the hallway. Your future self lives in the room you enter after you choose. And choosing is what the mind fears. Because choosing means closing doors. Choosing means commitment. Choosing means becoming. And becoming means shedding. This is why freezing can show up at the exact moment you're about to level up. Right before you hit publish. Right before you send the message. Right before you walk into the gym. Right before you set the boundary. Right before you ask for what you want. Right before you say yes to an opportunity. Right before you say no to what drains you. You're not freezing because you're weak. You're freezing because your system senses a threshold. And thresholds trigger old programs. Now let me make this very real with examples. Imagine you want to start posting online. You know your niche. You know what to say. You even wrote a draft. And then you freeze. Suddenly you need better equipment. Suddenly you need more clarity. Suddenly you need a better plan. And a month passes. But what you're actually avoiding is not the post. You're avoiding being seen. Because being seen activates ancient stuff. What if they judge me? What if nobody cares? What if they do care? And then I have to keep showing up. What if I fail publicly? What if I succeed and people expect more? So your system chooses invisibility. Not because you don't want the life, because invisibility once kept you safe. Or imagine you need to have an honest conversation in your relationship. You know what to say. Your heart knows. And then you freeze. You distract. You smile. You swallow it. You tell yourself it's not worth it. But what you're avoiding is not the conversation. You're avoiding conflict. You're avoiding rejection. You're avoiding the possibility of being too much, or not enough, or finally telling the truth and having to face what the truth changes. Or imagine you're about to apply for something bigger, a role, a program, a partnership. You know you should, and you freeze. Suddenly you focus on polishing until the deadline passes. Because applying means stepping into a bigger timeline. And a bigger timeline asks a bigger you. So, the old you panics. Here's the compassionate but sharp truth. Freezing is not the enemy. Freezing is the alarm bell. It's your system saying, this matters. It's a sign you're near something real. So instead of trying to bulldoze yourself through it, we're going to do something different. We're going to create coherence. Coherence is when your thoughts, emotions, and actions start pointing in the same direction. When you're incoherent, you leak energy. You think one thing, feel another, do a third. You want it, but you doubt it. You crave it, but you fear it. You plan it, but you postpone it. And that split creates friction. It makes everything feel heavier than it needs to be. When you're coherent, the friction drops. Not because there's no fear, but because you're no longer fighting yourself. Coherence is a kind of inner alignment, like tuning an instrument. When the string is tuned, the note rings clear. When it's off, everything sounds strained. And your future self is you, tuned. That's why future self-psychology works, because it's not just mental. It's energetic. It shifts the tone of your inner signal. When you hold the state of your future self, even briefly, your system receives a new instruction. Not try harder, but this is who we are now. And identity is the deepest lever. Now there's something else happening in freezing that most people don't realize. There's a moment right before the freeze. A micro moment. A tiny breath. A tiny thought. A tiny contraction in the belly or chest. And if you can catch that moment, you can change everything. Because the freeze is not one big wall. It's a chain of small cues that build into a state. So we're going to work with the state because you don't think your way out of a frozen state. You regulate your way out. Your body leads. Your mind follows. That's not poetic. That's practical. And here's where I want to speak directly to the part of you that freezes. Not the part of you that's ambitious. Not the part of you that wants more. The part that locks. Listen, I know you're trying to protect us. I know you don't want pain. I know you're afraid of humiliation, rejection, disappointment, pressure, and loss. I see you. But we are not living small anymore to avoid feelings. We're learning to feel safely and move anyway. We're not abandoning ourselves anymore. We're becoming someone we can trust. And that's the real goal, isn't it? Not productivity. Trust. Because when you trust yourself, you don't need to hype yourself up. You don't need a perfect mood. You don't need the stars to align. You just move, quietly, steadily, like it's natural. So let's build that. Here's the shift I want you to absorb. You do not need to eliminate fear to act. You need to stop treating fear like a command. Fear is sensation. It's not authority. Fear can be present, and you can still choose. And every time you choose, you teach your system a new truth. I am someone who moves. I am someone who follows through. I am someone who can handle discomfort. I am someone who doesn't abandon myself at the threshold. And then something almost mystical happens, but it's also very grounded. Your inner world starts to organize around that assumption. Because what you assume as true, you start to live into. You start to notice different options. You start to take different micro actions. You start to behave like the person you decided you are. And behaviors where timelines change. That's the hidden alchemy. You take the raw material of fear and you transmute it into presence. You take the heaviness of doubt and you turn it into a clean decision. You don't do it by force, you do it by coherence. Now let's talk about the future self in a way that actually works. Most people imagine their future self like a person they have to impress. They imagine a perfected version, and then they feel ashamed they're not that yet. That's not the point. Your future self is not here to judge you. Your future self is here to guide you through the next 2 minutes. That's it, 2 minutes. Because your nervous system cannot change your whole life today, but it can do the next small thing. And the next small thing, repeated, becomes a new life. So when you freeze, you don't ask, how do I fix everything? You ask, what would my future self do next? Not today, not this week, not this year, next. And you choose the smallest honest action that aligns you with that identity. Because the smallest honest action carries a different frequency than a huge, dramatic promise. Big promises can be an escape. Small actions are a commitment. Now, there's also a strange emotional trap that keeps people frozen, and it's important to name it. Some people are not afraid of failing. They're afraid of succeeding, because success is exposure. Success is responsibility. Success changes dynamics. Success can trigger other people's projections. And if you grew up learning that being too much causes problems, then your system might secretly prefer you stuck. Because stuck keeps peace. Stuck keeps you relatable. Stuck keeps you safe in the tribe. So the moment you begin to rise, your system panics. If we change, will we still belong? This is why so many people sabotage right when things start working. Not because they're irrational, because belonging is primal. So, part of your work is to teach your system a new truth. I can grow and still belong. I can succeed and still be loved. I can be seen and still be safe. I can change and still be me. That's coherence. And coherence is not a thought. It's a state you cultivate. You cultivate it through breath, choice, and repetition. And I want to bring in one more image because it's the clearest way to understand what freezing is. Imagine your life is a radio. When you're in a frozen state, you're tuned to a station that plays one message on repeat. Not yet, not safe, not ready, not enough. And you can argue with that station all day. You can try to think positive. But if the frequency stays the same, the message stays the same. So we shift the frequency. We don't do it by pretending. We do it by regulating the body, choosing a micro action, and sealing a new identity. That's how you change the channel. Now, I want you to think of one thing you've been freezing on. Just one. A conversation, a project, a decision, a habit, a boundary, a message you haven't sent, a task you keep postponing, a start you keep delaying. Don't pick 10 things, pick one. And notice what happens in your body as you bring it to mind. Maybe your stomach tightens. Maybe your shoulders lift. Maybe your jaw clenches. Maybe your chest feels heavy. Maybe you feel a subtle numbness. That sensation is the doorway. That sensation is where the old program lives. And we're going to meet it with something different, not force. Presence. Because presence is the element that transforms. Presence is what makes fear lose its grip. Now, gently, we're going to move into a practical action right now in a way that feels human and doable. No dramatic music, no perfection, just you and one choice. Take a slow breath in and let your exhale be longer than your inhale. Like you're quietly telling your body, we're not in danger. Do it again. In, and a longer out. Good. Now the first thing you're going to do is bring your body out of statue mode and into flow mode. Put your feet on the ground, even if you're sitting. Feel the weight. Let your shoulders drop a millimeter. Let your tongue rest in your mouth. Let your eyes soften. It sounds small, but it's not small. This is you giving your nervous system a new signal. You are shifting out of emergency without needing an emergency to end first. And while you're in that softer state, ask yourself one honest question, quietly, without drama. What feeling am I trying to avoid right now? Not the story, not the explanation, the feeling. Is it fear? Is it shame? Is it overwhelm? Is it grief? Is it anger? Is it disappointment? Name it. Because what you can name, you can hold. What you can hold, you can move through. This is not weakness. This is mastery. Now, the second thing you're going to do is call your future self in the correct way. Not as a perfect person, but as you with coherence. Ask this. If the version of me who has already crossed this threshold were here, what would they do in the next 2 minutes? 2 minutes. And let the answer be small. Not finish the whole project. Not change my entire routine. Not fix my life. Just the next honest motion. Open the document and write 3 sentences. Put on your shoes and stand by the door. Send the first line of the message. Set a timer for 10 minutes and begin. Clear one tiny piece of the space. Make the call and let it ring. Write the subject line. Record one imperfect take. Small, real, immediate. Because the hallway of potential ends when you make a move. The room begins when you act. And once you're in the room, you can breathe. Now the third thing is the seal. This is where most people skip, and then they wonder why they freeze again tomorrow. Your system needs a new identity instruction. So choose a simple present tense assumption that fits the action you're taking. Something you can actually believe while you do it. I am someone who follows the next step. I am someone who moves even with fear. I am someone who keeps my word to myself. I am someone who can handle discomfort. I am someone who chooses coherence. Say it once, quietly inside, like you mean it, and then immediately match it with a physical cue. Straighten your spine a little. Open your chest a little. Relax your jaw. Exhale. Let your body become the proof, because your body is your signature. When your signature changes, your reality begins to reorganize around it. And then, the final piece of the seal. Give yourself credit for the movement now, not later. Not when it's perfect. Not when it's finished. Now. Tell yourself one true sentence. I didn't abandon myself. That sentence is medicine. Because the deepest wound in self-sabotage is not failure. It's self-abandonment. When you repeatedly walk away from your own intention, you start to lose trust in yourself. And without trust, every action becomes heavy. Every plan feels like a lie. Every dream feels like a tease. But when you return to yourself, even in a small way, trust comes back, quietly, gradually, powerfully. And this is how you become your future self. Not by leaping into a new life overnight, by returning to coherence one choice at a time. Now, let's bring it full circle. Remember the quote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." What stands in the way is not a wall to hate. It's a doorway to understand. Your freeze is not proof you're broken. It's proof you're near something that matters. And the question is not, how do I never freeze again? The question is, who am I when I freeze? Do I become the person who negotiates with fear? Or do I become the person who breathes, chooses, and moves? Because that identity choice is where timelines split. And I want to leave you with one gentle but piercing question. Let it sit in your chest like a warm ember. If you weren't trying to prove anything to anyone, what would your next small step be? Taken in peace. Not your entire plan. Your next small step. Take it today. Not tomorrow. Not Monday. Today. Not because you're forcing yourself, but because you're coming back to yourself. And if you want to make this real, do it right after this. Do the 2-minute action. Then come back and comment coherence again and tell me what your 2-minute move was. Even if it seems tiny, especially if it seems tiny. Tiny moves are how the future self is built. You're not frozen because you're weak. You're frozen because you're standing at the edge of becoming who you've always been. And you don't have to do it perfectly. You just have to do it coherently. Stay close. Follow the channel. We're going to keep turning these thresholds into doorways together